This morning, I sat on the edge of my bed longer than usual. At my age, mornings are not something you rush into. They arrive gently, like an old friend who knocks softly because they know you are fragile. My feet hovered above the floor, and I stared at the empty chair by the window. It used to be Henry's chair. He would sit there every morning, rubbing his hands together, waiting for the sun to climb over the Virginia trees. He's been gone 31 years now, and still, sometimes I forget. Sometimes I still turn my head, expecting to see him, but the chair stays empty. At 102 years old, you have more empty chairs than full ones, and you have more memories than tomorrows. People often think the hardest part of aging is the pain in your bones, but they are wrong. The hardest part is the silence, especially the silence left by the people you raised. I had 2 children, a son and a daughter. I remember their first cries. I remember their first steps. I remember the nights I stayed awake, holding them when they were sick, whispering promises that I would always be there. And I was, always. I was there when they were scared of thunderstorms. I was there when they failed their exams. I was there when their hearts broke for the first time. I was there when they slammed doors and told me they hated me. And I was still there the next morning, making their breakfast. Because that's what mothers do. We stay, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. But one day, something changes. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, quietly. They stop telling you everything. They stop asking for your advice. They stop meeting you. And at first, you're proud. You tell yourself, this is good. This means I did my job. You watch them build their lives, their careers, their families, their worlds that no longer revolve around you. And you smile, even when something inside you aches. Because love, real love, is not about being needed. It's about being happy that they no longer need you. But no one prepares you for what comes next. No one prepares you for the distance. Not physical distance. Emotional distance. The phone calls become shorter, then less frequent. Then sometimes they stop. Not because they don't love you, but because they are busy loving their own lives. I remember the first time my son didn't visit on Christmas. He called. He said he was sorry. He said work was busy. He said he would come next year. I told him it was okay. I told him I understood. And I meant it. But after I hung up the phone, I sat in Henry's chair. And I cried. Not because he didn't come, but because I realized something. I was no longer the center of his world. I had become a memory in progress. You see, children don't leave you all at once. They leave you in pieces. One missed visit, one forgotten birthday, one shorter conversation, until one day you realize you are living in the past, and they are living in the future, and you are no longer in it. I used to blame myself. I would sit here and wonder, was I too strict? Was I too distant? Did I say the wrong things? Did I love them the wrong way? This is what old mothers do. We replay every moment, every word, every mistake, looking for the reason why, because it is easier to blame yourself than to accept the truth. The truth is, this is life. Children are not meant to stay. They are meant to go. They are meant to build lives so full that they don't have time to look back every day. And that is not failure. That is success. It just doesn't feel like success when you are sitting alone in a quiet house. I remember one afternoon, many years ago. I was younger then, maybe 80. My daughter visited. She was sitting at the kitchen table, looking at her phone. I was talking, telling her a story about her father. She nodded, but she wasn't really listening. I stopped talking. She didn't notice. That was the moment I realized I had become background noise in her life. Not because she didn't love me, but because she had heard my stories before. Because she had her own stories now. And that is when I learned something important. Children do not stop loving you. They just stop needing you in the same way. And that hurts. Because being needed makes you feel alive. Being needed makes you feel important. And when that disappears, you have to find a new reason to exist. For a long time, I didn't. For a long time, I was just waiting. Waiting for visits. Waiting for phone calls. Waiting for someone to remind me that I still mattered. But waiting is a dangerous thing, because life does not wait with you. Life keeps moving, with or without you. And one day I looked at myself in the mirror, an old woman, thin, wrinkled, sad, and I realized something. I was still alive. And that meant something. It meant my story wasn't over. Even if no one was watching, even if no one was listening. So I started living again. Not for them, for me. I started sitting on the porch every morning watching the birds. I started talking to neighbors. I started laughing again. Not because my life was perfect, but because it was still mine. And slowly, the loneliness became softer. It didn't disappear. Loneliness never disappears completely, but it stopped controlling me. You see, at 102, I understand something most people don't. Your children are not your life. They are part of your life, but they are not all of it. If you make them all of it, you will lose yourself when they leave. And they will leave, not because they don't love you, but because that is what they're supposed to do. And here is the most important truth. You must let them go without making them feel guilty, because guilt is not love. Guilt is a chain, and love should never be a chain. Love should be a door, always open, never forcing, never demanding, just waiting. And if they walk through that door, you welcome them with warmth. And if they don't, you still keep the door open, not for them, but for your own peace. My son called last week. His voice sounded older, tired. He said, "Mom, I miss you." And I smiled, not because he said it, but because I no longer needed him to say it. I had already made peace with the silence. And that is the final lesson I want you to understand. Do not build your happiness on people, because people leave. Not always physically, but emotionally. Build your happiness on yourself, on small things, on quiet mornings, on birds outside your window, on memories that make you smile instead of cry. Because one day you will sit where I am sitting, in a quiet house with empty chairs, and you will realize life was never about who stayed. It was about how deeply you lived, how freely you loved, and how gently you learned to let go. I still love my children with all my heart. That never changes. But I no longer wait for them to complete my life, because at 102 years old, I finally understand. They were never meant to complete it. They were only meant to be part of it. And that is enough.